Hey, it's due, and this is the second week of December TBR. I think I've mentioned before that my TBR feels pretty hectic, so I'm just gonna, go over what I could read this week, knowing that some things won't get read or might get DNF'd because of the heck how hectic my TBR feels. And then it's the weekend. I did go to some little free libraries, on hold more than I hauled, but I did find some pretty spectacular finds that I want to share. So, during Booker season, a book that was long listed, um, and that I was really interested in reading, I put on hold, and it was one of several situations where I said, oh, that's interesting. I put it on hold and then expected it to be on hold for who knows how long, weeks upon weeks. And then the library acquired more copies, and it just came up on my, on my loan shelf. So I think I'm absolutely want to read it, and probably this week. And that's Sea Scraper by Benjamin Wood. And this was long listed, didn't make the short list. I don't believe it's very long. It's short. And yeah. Okay. I have queued up for this week because I would like the Friends of the Library pop-up book sale is this Saturday, where the volunteer who has Charmaine Wilkinson's Good Dirt is going to exchange it with me. I don't know if it's this month or next, but I'm going to go ahead and get this ready to give to her. So I'm listening to this and reading the physical copy. I'm really enjoying the listen, so I'm probably, just because it's really crappy outside, gonna be mostly listening to this, unless I kind of get pressed for time, because I think, like most people, I read with my eyes way faster than I listen. At least on a speed, like I've tried double speed and stuff, and that makes me nervous. Like, it's not an enjoyable listen, so why do it? Anyway, I've started it, my morning walk this morning, and I have a bit of a commute to meet some friends out this evening, and then a commute to work a couple days next week, where I'll get some good listening time in, plus my walks. No matter what the weather is like, I'm trying to get out at least for 15-20 minutes. Okay. What I had planned to sort of read along with it was Baking Cakes in Kigali, by Gail Parkin. And this was mostly because of the word cake, and it's like relevance in telling stories. So I hauled them at similar times. In fact, I hauled this right after, with the idea that I was going to read it with Black Cake. So that's coming up. One of my 10 until the end, and it's the second to the last one, is Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. I really actually wanted to listen to this, but due to how big it is and just kind of, well, it's on hold, the listen, by the way, and it may or may not come off hold. It certainly not in this next week, but that might force the decision if this does make my reading. I feel pretty dedicated to getting through the 10 till the end. And I will read this with my eyes. I have several kind of big books. I'm in the middle of another chunker 500 and really dense, like small font, dense book that I will talk about in my book review. But I plan to be reading chunks of it for quite a while, so that might impact this as well. Anyway, Someplace to Be Flying was on this last week's, and I didn't get to it. I keep pushing it off and pushing it off for whatever reason. I think maybe because it's from the 90s, and those are kind of like the stay power. It's something interesting to experience if it's still like, if the tone and the setting and the themes are relevant and appropriate for a more contemporary, my own contemporary analytical brain. So maybe that's why I keep pushing it off. This was a total spontaneous little free library find. So I really am like pushing myself towards, if I don't read it, then I just need to unhaul it. And if it comes back into my life, great. If not, I just didn't get to read it. So I'm gonna give it another try. It got pushed because I was gonna read it after Cersei, which will happen in the review video, and I was like, I don't know, fantasy to fantasy is like a little too much fantasy genre for me as well. We'll see. And then kind of between these two, what I'll get to, Crossing to Safety will be my second Wallace Stegner. It definitely has this early winter, end of fall vibe, which made me want to get to this book. Just the way, like, Wallace Stegner, the book that I read was, you know, kind of end of life or late in life, themes and characters, very Americana. And I think, that is a less represented sort of age group or stage in life. And so I think I've got time for this, hopefully. And then the other second book, I know I did a big like explore my library video where I was like, I'm going to read the second book by the author, is The Wonder by Emma Donoghue. This also is an adaptation, and I have friends who watch films coming over the holidays, and so I also kind of bumped this up because I thought, if it's like not overly dramatic kind of thing, or even if so, we could try the adaptation together, and I'd like to have the book read before. I quite like Room. I hope that I liked the writing of Room. I thought it was really good. And yeah, this is about a nurse and not a child, because yeah, sometimes being in the inner thoughts of a child is also, especially for an adult reader, is like, what I mean by that, like not middle grade. You have to be in the mood, I think. Anyway, The Wonder is historical fiction that I'm hoping to maybe get to next week. So those are all. I keep using words like maybe get to, because that's how I feel about this TBR. It kind of keeps getting a little, it's pretty randomized instead of piles of possibilities, or this is what I'm reading for the week. And it's okay. Holidays can mean that I have, and dark, dreary night days can mean that I have more time to read, or it can mean that I have less time to read because I have other things to take care of, as far like traveling and company and all of the things that come with holidays. Okay, little free libraries. I'm going to say this every time I do a little free library haul video. I think that the experience with little free libraries in my city, in these neighborhoods, is just so fantastic. And why I have to say that is because I found The Emperor of Gladness, which is a new release, which is I loved Ocean Vuong's On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous. I really was looking forward to whenever this book would come my way, and I did not expect it to for quite some time, as this kind of like free and or thrifting situation doesn't necessarily come, new releases, more popular books don't necessarily come my way. They're always spectacular finds. So finding this was just absolutely, serendipitous, I think, is all I could say, if not fortunate. And again, it reinforces that Just stay with it, look around, read books, exchange them. You will find good books for you. Like, everyone's reading tastes are different, but I know that little free libraries also have a lot of things that maybe are kind of like throwaways and probably don't have that great of a readership. But they also have these spectacular finds. Okay, I also found, and I was so, do I take it? Do I not take it? Okay, I took it. And if I think again about it and want to unhaul it, that's fine, as it was. This is like one of those friends of the library situations where it's just the publication date is too old and they're not keeping it in their store because that's just how they're rolling. Even though this is clearly a classic, but this classic edition is an older edition, before 2005. So it ended up in a little free library. And this is Marcel Proust's In Search of Lost Time, Volume 1, Swan's Way. This author, of course, is a heavy-hitting classic author whom I've never read, and who gets referred to in a lot of other literature. And so as a reference point, I think I really appreciate the opportunity to have found him and read him. By the way, the translator of this book is, there are two, C.K. Scott Moncrief and Terence Kilmartin. So I'm not reading classics right now. And in fact, it took me a long time to even decide, will I haul classics? Because I saw them a lot. I'm not paying for them right now. They're all coming out of little free libraries or one of my free books situation, or like one of those like 50-cent kind of things, which is paying, but such a nominal amount in today's economy. In any case, I'm not really reading classics right now. It could switch. I could switch it up. I definitely have had a lot of experience with classic literature, just not Marcel Proust. Okay. Super excited to find Walk the Blue Fields by Claire Keegan. I believe this is a short story collection, if I'm not mistaken. And this was published in 2007. Having just finished Small Things Like These, I'm really appreciated and adored Claire Keegan's writing style. So to find this immediately after, also instilled almost the same joy and delight and glee as finding The Emperor of Gladness. I think a book club for Troublesome Women by Marie Bostwick wasn't on my radar at all. It is a new release, so there's that, and it's a book about books. And let's say 2025. So okay, there's that. And even though it hasn't necessarily been on my radar, it might be sort of like it's a New York Times best-selling author. I don't know if this book made it to the New York Times best-selling list, but it could be one of those sort of like popular book clubby book, which sometimes, work for me but aren't necessarily my like must grab. That being said, it's about books. And for Troublesome Women suggests that it's got feminist themes, which I tend to enjoy. So I thought that this was a pretty spectacular find too. Also, in the way of just amazing finds, GASP, or JASPP, is an anthology of Singaporean gay poetry and prose. I have a friend whom I'm going to give this book to, but I'm going to read some of it, some of these poems and or prose before I do. I think for the kind of reader that I am and the kind of person who wants to experience as many different on-roads into different ways to think and be and experience life and tell stories as I can, within whatever I deem as reason, this is exactly the kind of book I would like to have on my shelf, to know that it's there when I feel brave or experimental, and maybe in some cases, because I'm not that much of a poetry reader, but I really like how it mixes poetry and prose, and it has, I believe, I think it's in Malay, Mandarin, and English. So there's this multilinguality about it, that I also really like, to have. It also has just a fantastic cover. Corinne Manning's We Had No Rules stories. This is stories, they're feminist stories. The cover implies that perhaps there's a Black authorship, and that's my own like interpretation of just seeing the hands on this cover. And I found that interesting because, in fact, this author doesn't present as such either, which may or may not have implications. Like, there are things that I'm wondering about the like publication decisions of this book. It's also signed by the author with a personal note to somebody. I also had a degree of excitement about finding this book. I don't, if it weren't in like this sort of like little free library sort of or thrifting situation, I'm not sure this book would have come to me via other means. And it's already sparked some intrigue. I may or may not agree with part, some, or all, but I think also maybe there's some point in reading that, sans like just sexism, unexplored sexism, because that's just, I think it's been explored through literature for a very, very long time and forced down our throats, as you've heard me say, a long time. And I don't expect that of this book, but other things perhaps, and we'll see. The Removes by Tatiana Soli is my second Tatiana Soli book. I also have the Lotus Eaters that I got from the St. Vincent de Paul for 10 for $5. This one is from a little free library. I'd seen it in a little free library a couple of times, and I passed it up. And I think that I mean, the cover is quite compelling. It's historical fiction told from a feminine lens. Female, maybe I want to say, or maybe feminist, or both. I don't know if feminine is the right word that I meant there. I had my trepidation about this one as well. And I think that without thinking about it too much now in the haul, I'm just going to note that I had trepidation that I found this book. It's my second Tatiana Soli book. I had trepidation about the other one as well. And I'm just going to, read the books or pull them up if I'm going to read them, and on the TBR video, maybe discuss some of the thoughts that I had around hauling this book or keeping this book, and or maybe picking to read this book at that time. And then again, I think there's something to worth saying of like giving things a chance, and in some cases even seeing them all the way through and trying to, depending on, right, of so many things about a reader, like where you are in your life, your mental state, like what the trauma triggers are, all of those things. But if you're able to kind of see it to the end and see what you can learn about anything, another perspective, or even if like your predictions of something were true, and that in and of itself can be affirming. So I know I'm being a little cryptic about that. When I do perhaps the TBR video for this, I can go more into the subject matter and perhaps talk about that a little bit more. But there we go. That's my video. Those are my hauls. That's my TBR. And I'm still sitting at like 5 to 7 books a week in reading. So these TBRs, in fact, these TBRs are hectic, and these hauls are hectic in some ways, but my reading is still voracious. And it does feel good to be surrounded by a lot of variety of books coming from different sources, and being both beloved and, you know, books both beloved and I'm extremely excited to read, such as these two, and maybe somewhat more, you know, experimental, and, you know, just keeping curiosity and an open mind alive.